You know what they say about the devil? He never forgets. And CM Punk is not a patient man. Before we get into anything else, before we break down what happened, what it means, and where this is all going, I need you to picture something. Picture a Monday night. The kind of Monday night where the air inside the arena feels different. Heavy. Electric. Like the whole crowd collectively held its breath and forgot to let it go. The kind of night where you could feel something massive was about to happen, and then it did. And when it did, it sent shockwaves through the entire WWE universe that we are still feeling right now. CM Punk, Roman Reigns, a table, and an act of violence so calculated, so precise, so deeply personal that it didn't feel like a wrestling moment. It felt like a statement, a declaration of war, a promise written not in words, but in splintered wood and broken pride. Welcome back to Wrestling Impact. If you are new here, strap in, because today we are covering one of the most explosive developments in recent WWE history. And if you have been riding with us since day one, you already know. When CM Punk gets personal, things get dangerous. And right now, it doesn't get more personal than this. Let's go back to where it started, because great stories always have roots, and this one runs deep. Roman Reigns spent years building an empire. The tribal chief, the head of the table. The man who remade himself from the ground up and became arguably the most dominant figure in WWE history. And for a long time, nobody could touch him. Not really. Not in a way that left a mark. Champions fell. Legends were humbled. Entire factions were assembled in his name. The Bloodline wasn't just a stable, it was a message. You either acknowledged Roman Reigns, or you got put down. But here is the thing about empires. They attract challengers. And not all challengers are created equal. CM Punk came back to WWE carrying something most returning stars don't bring with them: receipts. The man had been gone. He had watched from a distance. He had thought. He had stewed. And when he finally walked back through that curtain and stepped under those lights again, he wasn't doing it to recapture glory. He was doing it with a purpose. And that purpose had a name. The tension between Punk and Reigns didn't explode overnight. These things rarely do. It started with glances, with words on the microphone that cut just a little deeper than they needed to, with Punk standing in the ring and essentially daring Roman to acknowledge him not as a subject, but as an equal, as a threat. Punk had looked Roman dead in the eyes during a promo segment weeks prior and said something the crowd has not stopped talking about since. He leaned into that microphone, let the silence breathe for just a moment, and said, "You built a table at the head of the room and called yourself the chief. I'm not sitting at your table, Roman. I'm putting you through it." The crowd erupted. And somewhere backstage, you have to believe Roman Reigns felt that. But Roman being Roman, he didn't respond with panic. He responded with strategy. That's what separates him from everyone else. He doesn't chase chaos. He controls the narrative. He moved his pieces. He let Paul Heyman do what Paul Heyman does. He let the machinery of the Bloodline grind forward. And he assumed, the way powerful men often do, that the noise would fade. CM Punk is not noise. Fast forward to that fateful Monday on Raw. The build had been simmering for weeks. Match announcements. Contract signings with the kind of tension that makes you forget to blink. Backstage confrontations that the cameras barely caught but that the locker room talked about for days. And then came the segment that changed everything. Roman Reigns was in the ring. He had just finished a promo that, true to form, was masterclass level arrogance wrapped in steel. He had the title draped over his shoulder, the smirk fully operational, Paul Heyman at his side with that nervous energy he carries like a second skin. Roman had just declared loudly, clearly, for all the world to hear that CM Punk's time had passed. That whatever Punk thought was going to happen at WrestleMania was a fantasy. That the reality of Roman Reigns was not something CM Punk was built to survive. And then the glass shattered. Except it wasn't glass. It was Punk's music. And it wasn't the entrance ramp he came from. He came through the crowd. The arena went from 0 to 100 in the span of a heartbeat. Punk weaved through fans who were absolutely losing their minds, security scrambling, the production team clearly not prepared for this. Roman turned, and for just a fraction of a second, you could see it. Not fear. Roman Reigns doesn't do fear, but something close to recognition. The recognition of a man who realizes the script has just been ripped up and thrown in his face. Punk slid into the ring. Heyman scattered. The Bloodline members who had been at ringside found themselves caught flat-footed as Punk moved with surgical precision directly toward Roman. They locked eyes. The words exchanged between them weren't picked up cleanly by the microphone, but the body language was a language all its own. And then it happened. Punk moved first. Roman moved second. But Punk had planned this. Every step of it. The chaos that followed was brief but brutal, and at the end of it, in a moment that stopped time in every living room, every sports bar, every arena section watching the big screen, Roman Reigns went through the table. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Through the table. The crash of it, the collapse of the structure, the visual of Roman Reigns lying in the wreckage of splintered wood, it hit like a thunderclap. The crowd didn't just react. They detonated. Thousands of people on their feet, noise so loud it distorted the broadcast audio, and CM Punk standing over Roman Reigns with an expression that wasn't triumphant. It wasn't celebrating. It was cold, deliberate, satisfied in the way only a man who has waited a very, very long time for a moment gets to be satisfied. He looked down at Roman, then he looked up at the camera, and he said 3 words slowly enough that every lip reader in every time zone caught them perfectly. I told you. Now here is where things get truly interesting, because putting Roman Reigns through a table on Raw is not just a wrestling spot. In the world of WWE storytelling, it is loaded with meaning. Roman Reigns has been the head of the table. That phrase, that positioning, has been the central metaphor of his entire run as tribal chief. The table represents his authority, his family, his claim to supremacy. And CM Punk didn't just put him through it physically, he put him through it symbolically. He dismantled the mythology in real time, on the grandest stage available to him, on Monday Night Raw, in front of the world. And Roman cannot let that go unanswered. No version of Roman Reigns, not the tribal chief, not the head of the table, not the greatest of all time, can absorb that image and maintain his position without a response that is equal or greater in force. The entire foundation of his character demands retribution. Which is exactly what CM Punk is counting on. See, here is the chess match beneath the warfare. Punk didn't just attack Roman, he provoked him. He forced Roman's hand. He made Roman have to react, which means Roman is now playing Punk's game instead of his own. For a man whose entire persona is built on control, on dictating terms, on being the one who moves first and moves last, being provoked into a reactive position is genuinely dangerous. It robs Roman of his biggest psychological advantage. And the WWE Universe is starting to realize it. The fan reaction in the aftermath of Raw was something else entirely. Social media was split in the most fascinating way. You had the Punk faithful who were absolutely electric, who felt like this was the moment they had been waiting for across years of Punk's complicated journey. But you also had the Reigns loyalists, the acknowledgers, the people who have watched Roman evolve into something genuinely compelling, and those people were furious. Not at WWE. Not at the booking. Furious at Punk. Invested. Emotional. That's the sign of a feud that has reached something real. Even in the arena itself, the reaction was layered. One fan caught on camera summed it up perfectly. He was in a Punk shirt, losing his mind, jumping up and down, and then he turned to his friend in a Roman Reigns shirt, and they just stared at each other for a second before both started laughing. Because even they knew. Even in the middle of taking sides, they knew they were watching something special. Backstage, the whispers, the things that filter out through locker room culture, painted a picture of an environment buzzing with anticipation. Veterans of the business apparently stopped what they were doing to watch the monitors. People who have seen everything, who have watched thousands of episodes of Raw, found themselves standing still, captivated. That's not nothing. That's the mark of a moment that transcends the routine. Now let's talk about what comes next, because WrestleMania is on the horizon and this freight train has one destination. Roman's response to the table incident was expected to be immediate and overwhelming. The tribal chief does not absorb a public humiliation quietly. Every instinct in his character compels escalation. And sure enough, in the days that followed, the signals started emerging. Paul Heyman, who is essentially a human weather vane for Roman Reigns' storylines, appeared with a sharpened edge in his delivery. His promos shifted tone from the theatrical confidence that accompanies Roman at his peak to something tighter, angrier, more personal. Heyman's genius is that he telegraphs Roman's state of mind through his own cadence, and right now, that cadence is screaming. Roman himself has been strategic in his positioning. He has not simply charged forward. He has begun building his response in layers, which is, frankly, scarier than a direct charge. A cornered lion who is still thinking clearly is far more dangerous than one that simply swings wildly. Roman is thinking clearly. He's hurt. He's humiliated. But he is thinking. And when Roman Reigns thinks people get hurt on purpose rather than by accident. The contract for the WrestleMania match, reportedly already in motion before the table incident, has now taken on an entirely different emotional weight. What was already going to be a massive premium live event main event has now been wrapped in layers of personal stakes that go beyond championships and beyond legacies. This is about dominance, about pride, about who gets to write the story of their generation in WWE. CM Punk has the momentum. There is no question about that. The image of Roman Reigns lying in the wreckage of that table is going to be replayed for weeks. It is the kind of visual that defines an era of a feud. But momentum, as everyone in professional wrestling knows, is a living thing. It rises and it falls. And Roman Reigns has a long, undeniable history of finding ways to take momentum away from his opponents at the exact moment it matters most. The question isn't whether Roman will respond. He will. The question is how. The question is what form that response takes. Does it come in the ring? Does it come backstage? Does it come through the bloodline, through proxies who do the dirty work while Roman maintains plausible deniability? Does it come through Heyman's words first, a psychological deconstruction before the physical retaliation? And here is the counter question that makes this truly compelling: what is Punk's plan when it does come? Because Punk attacked through the crowd. He moved unpredictably. He gave up the home field advantage of a formal confrontation and turned the entire arena into his weapon. If Roman responds in kind, if he stops playing by the rules Punk is used to, does Punk have an answer? Every great feud in WWE history has had this quality. The moment where you genuinely cannot tell who is going to come out on top. Where both sides have demonstrated enough intelligence, enough ruthlessness, enough sheer force of will that the outcome feels genuinely unwritten. That is where we are right now with Punk and Roman. And honestly, I have goosebumps just talking about it. WrestleMania is the destination. The table on Raw was the opening act of a story that is going to crescendo in a stadium full of people who have been waiting for this. A match with no clean ending possible, because whatever happens, it will only be the latest chapter in a rivalry that feels like it was written by forces larger than any single Monday night. CM Punk put Roman Reigns through a table. He looked into the camera and he made a promise. And every single one of us watching knew this is far from over. This has barely begun. The tribal chief is going to come back. He always comes back. But when he does, he's going to find that CM Punk has not been resting, has not been celebrating, has been preparing, has been thinking 3 steps ahead in the way that only a man who knows exactly what he's capable of and exactly what his opponent is capable of can think. This feud is everything WWE at its best has always been: high stakes, personal grudges. 2 of the most compelling performers in the history of the business locked in a collision that the wrestling world is going to be talking about for a very long time. And Wrestling Impact is going to be here every single step of the way. So here is what I need from you. If you felt even a fraction of what I felt putting this together, if your heart was racing, if you were on the edge of your seat, if you physically remembered that moment when Roman went through the table and felt it all over again, then hit that like button right now. Leave me a comment. Tell me who you think walks out of WrestleMania. Tell me whether you're riding with Punk or acknowledging Reigns. Because that debate is exactly what this channel lives for. Subscribe to Wrestling Impact if you haven't already, because we cover every twist, every turn, every table splintering moment in WWE, and we do it with the passion this sport deserves. Hit the bell. Turn on notifications. Because the next chapter of this story? It's coming fast. CM Punk issued a promise. Roman Reigns never forgets a debt. And WrestleMania